everybody. I am super excited that I'm finally making this video and sharing it with you guys. I gave birth to this sweet little baby girl almost 3 weeks ago, and I have been planning. I'm feeding her right now because I have been trying to film this all day and we're having a hard day. And so this is the only way that I can get her to stay calm and relax, hopefully, while I film this super quick. So I, for weeks, was having Braxton Hicks. Thought I was going into labor a bunch of times just because of like the pain I was having and how I felt. But for weeks I was, just experiencing like pre-labor contractions. And finally, the 19th of November, I was having contractions that I was around 11 or 12 p.m. that I could finally time. And so I had the app on my phone. I was timing my contractions. They were 5 minutes apart, and it lasted like that all night long. I got a couple hours of sleep, and then I couldn't sleep through my contractions anymore because they were so strong. After that, I let my mom, my sisters know in the morning that I was indeed in labor, and that I was in labor and that they should probably come down, and because they live 3.5 hours north of me. So finally I went to my appointment that day. I had an OBGYN appointment scheduled because I was 39 weeks, and I went. He checked me. I was dilated to a 4. They just wanted to make sure that I was in labor. I knew that I was in labor, but I think you have to get checked when you go to the hospital if they're going to admit you. So I was at a 4, and I was exhausted. It had been 16 hours already, and my labor was slowing down, you guys. My contractions were originally 5 minutes apart. My labor was slowed down to 20 to 30 minutes apart of each contraction, which isn't really enough to like sleep through. So my contractions were still waking me up. At this point, it was painful, but I could totally handle it. It was nothing that I couldn't handle. I just would have to breathe through them, close my eyes, focus, and then the contraction was over. I was fine. So at this point, we had all of our stuff just in case they wanted to admit me. He said, I can either send you home and you can just wait it out, or you can go to the birthing unit. I can break your water. Things are going to progress and you'll have this baby by tonight. It was like the afternoon at this point. I think it was around 4 p.m. And so I was like, okay, I'm exhausted. I want you to break my water. I want to have the baby. And I was comfortable with this because it wasn't the same as being induced, and I just thought, whatever, great. So he breaks my water. I had so much fluid in my stomach. He's like, this is way more than normal. So he broke my water. I got up, I started walking around the hospital, and my contractions started getting really intense to where I would have to pause. AJ was holding me. Well, you guys, things, oh my gosh, kicked into gear so fast. All of a sudden, before I know it, well, my mom and sisters had got there, and all of a sudden they're getting really bad, and so I go lay in the bed, and you guys, the pain was absolutely unreal. The contractions were pretty bad, but I was able to breathe through them, and I'm like, okay, as long as I can breathe through these, I'm gonna be fine. And I was breathing through them for a while, doing really, really well. Well, they got to a point to where they were so painful, and I've heard that if you have your water, if the doctors break your water, usually your contractions are a lot sharper than they would if you didn't have them break your water, or if your water broke naturally. And oh my gosh, they were so sharp. I think I have to double check, you guys. I had no concept of time, like no concept. So when they broke my water, I was dilated to a 4, but for 4.5 hours, I dilated to a 4 to a 7. So that was like the longest part of my labor. In this 4.5 hours, it didn't feel like 4.5 hours, honestly. It got so bad I wasn't able to breathe through my contractions. I asked for a pain shot, which I didn't get an epidural. I didn't want an epidural, but I wasn't opposed to getting a pain shot just because I know how hard this can be. So I got a pain shot, and it helped me get back to being able to breathe through my contractions, not feeling like I was going to pass out, not having to yell through the pain. And it was great. Maybe helped me for 30-40 minutes. And this is the only time I ever talked to my mom and sisters, but I looked over and I was like, I feel so much better. It still really hurts, but I feel like I can breathe through these. So I am breathing through them, feeling a little bit better, and all of a sudden they get even worse. At this point, I think they checked me and I was at like a 6 or 7. So then the pain got so bad, I was having a very hard time breathing through my contractions, because when you're in that much pain, it's just hard to keep breathing. And so in order to keep breathing through them, I had to let out moans, like yells. I wasn't screaming or anything, but I definitely was making more noise than I thought I would be, just because of how painful it was. And it helped to let out a noise while you're like, it kind of helped me feel like I was letting out some pain when I was able to let out noise. So the doctor comes in, they checked me again. I think they checked me when I was about a 6 or 7. You guys, then at this point, my contractions were so bad. I got up to use the bathroom to go pee. It was so horribly painful. My contractions at this point were like literally back to back. I was getting maybe 20 seconds of a break. I go back to my bed, and I, at this point, was in a lot of pain. And my sister told me, I think it was my sister, told me that I should get on all fours, or I should at least get on my knees and like do the weeping angel willow pose, whatever, over the bed. So I do that. I did not want to move, you guys. Moving was so hard because I wasn't getting breaks to move, and every time I move, it would trigger a contraction, or my contractions were already just going anyways, and it hurt so bad. And so I finally, I just heard a voice that said, Abby, get up and go to all fours. I go to all fours. Probably a few minutes later, maybe 5-10 minutes later, not even, I think it was less than 5 minutes, I feel like I have to poop. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna poop. I just said, I'm gonna poop. So they put a tray under me, and I am like, then I realized, no, my body is pushing out my baby. I haven't heard of it. There's something called fetal ejection reflex, and a lot of women actually who do natural births experience this, but it's very important that you're in a specific position to experience this and that you wait for it. A lot of women nowadays don't even do coach pushing. They just let their babies naturally come out of them. I didn't know as much about this before labor, but now I know a lot about it because I've been researching it, and this is my biggest regret. I was on my knees over the bed and they wanted me to start pushing. When this happened first. The nurse comes in when I'm on all fours, and she's like, I'm gonna check you. And I was like, no, you're not, because in order to check me, I have to lay on my back. You guys, I was in so much pain, I didn't want to lay on my back. The nurse walks out of the room. My pain at this point is so intense that I'm like, let her check me. She comes back in, checks me, and she's like, you're at a 10. The feeling of relief, you guys, was absolutely incredible. Finally, I was like, my labor's over, and delivery. I'm so close. I made it this far. I can do this. And I was like, are you serious? And I was like, so happy. So at this point, I don't remember before or after she checked me, I can feel my body is pushing out the baby. I can't explain it. As a contraction would come, I was not pushing, but I could feel the pressure. She was moving farther down. And not that she was starting to come out of my body, but I could just feel like my body was pushing for me. So then they come in and they're like, okay, before the doctor comes in, we can start doing some practice pushes. So I start doing practice pushes, but you guys, I'm so exhausted. I don't feel like I can push at this point. I am so tired. It had been almost 24 hours. And so I feel like I can't push, and my mom or somebody said maybe she should lay on her back, and the nurse said, yeah, the doctor's gonna make her anyways, which I don't know if that nurse was wrong or if one of the doctors lied to me, because I was told that I could push even when I took the birthing class there, the nurse was like, I really encourage people to not lay on their back while pushing. Again, usually for fetal ejection reflex isn't triggered, I don't think, when you're on your back, from the research that I've done. So that was the biggest mistake of my life. I was so exhausted, you guys. I was not there emotionally. Again, I forgot to say this, when they gave me the pain shot, it made me exhausted. It doesn't really take away your pain, but it kind of makes you so you can like zone out a little bit and like not be so emotional. When I said I wanted the pain shot, AJ was like, are you sure? Are you sure you want a pain shot? And I looked at him and I said, yes, I'm sure I want the effing pain shot. And I swore right in front of my mom. And I just thought that was really funny. And the nurses all laughed and they were like, yep. Okay, so sorry, this is all over the place. So then I get on my back, and this is I don't know what was worse, like in terms of they're just really different. Like you can't, at least for me, I can't compare labor and delivery because they were so different, you guys. Like labor was sharp pain and it was hard to focus mentally, but then I would say the next part, because I was experiencing the ring of fire for like 2 hours, that was probably worse pain. Really quick, what I want to say before I talk about delivery is I was a huge believer of like, if I just envisioning my body open, she won't get stuck. Or if I have a good mindset, I would do like meditation and just kind of envision my birth being like this beautiful, easy thing. And so I just want to say that you don't know what your birth is going to be like. For me, I think I was in denial about how much pain it's going to be, and that doesn't mean that your experience is going to be bad even if you're in a lot of pain. Pain is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just changing your mindset that it's okay that I'm in pain. I think I just didn't prepare myself for that part. And also, I would probably do a home birth next time because usually people have a lot less pain, I feel like, and better experiences. Not always though. So at this point, I'm on my back. People are holding my legs and it's time to start pushing. Well, this was when things kind of took a turn because I ended up pushing her out. Well, it took me 2.5 hours, and I think that if I would have stayed on my knees over the bed, my baby would have just came out in maybe under 30 minutes. But instead, I made it a lot worse because I got on my back. And that's my biggest regret, but I know that next time will be better. So I'm pushing, and you guys, her head, after maybe 30 minutes, her head's up this far, and it stays like that for 2 hours. Now, I thought because she's not coming out, I'm not pushing hard enough. I ended up pushing so hard that I broke every single blood vessel in my eye. I'll insert a picture to show you guys. I had bruises under my eyes. It looked like I got like punched. It looked like I got beaten up. My whole face was swollen. I had some broken blood vessels down here. All of it's gone now. It's all cleared up. And yeah, it was rough. I was really exhausted. I was having a very hard time breathing, just because you get like a little break in between, but then what you do is when a contraction's coming on, this is coach pushing, what they do at hospitals and at home sometimes too. Once you feel a contraction, which it's still really painful, I have to grab my legs and I try and do 3 10-minute pushes. So it goes contraction, push for 10 seconds. So you're not breathing the whole 10 seconds because you're pushing. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, pause. You do 3 of those in a row. So pretty much for 30 seconds, you're just getting like 3 breaths. And it's hard. Then in between, I was having a hard time breathing. So I ended up having an oxygen mask just in between because I think her oxygen was getting a little low, which that's the worst thing that happened during the delivery, which I'm so thankful for. I was fine the whole time. The baby was fine. The only thing was our oxygen was a little bit low because I was having a hard time breathing. So I just kept pushing and pushing. And you guys, looking back, I feel so bad for myself because I have compassion for myself because I thought that I wasn't pushing hard enough, which made me break all the blood vessels in my eyes. And it was just because she was stuck. She wasn't wanting to fit through the amount of, how do I even put this? She wasn't wanting to fit through my vagina. Like, I don't know how else to put it. So swollen. The doctor was just trying to open me up. He was like putting like oiling up her head and trying to get her to like slide out of me. He was trying to open me up with his fingers, which hurt so bad. So now on the breaks in between contractions, I have the doctor sticking his fingers inside of me around the baby's head, trying to get her out. And I eventually asked him to cut me, but that's not, episiotomies are not protocol nowadays, and so he wouldn't, because it's a lot better for you to heal if you naturally tear. So finally, after 2.5 hours of pushing, I tore really bad, and I had a periclitoral tear. I don't even really know all of what that is, but you can imagine where it tears into. And I felt him stitching me up for a while. I haven't looked at my stitches yet though, because I don't want to look at him then. But yeah, that was really rough, and that was really rough after birth. I want to make a postpartum video telling you guys about my postpartum experience, but that was really hard too, just because of the stitches. If you get stitches, you don't actually realize how immobile you are compared to if you have just a normal vaginal delivery with no stitches. You're fine a few days later and it's like no big deal, but stitches is just like, they're brutal. But I don't say any of this to scare you guys. I just wanted to be honest about my birth experience. It was so worth it, and it was very hard for me in the moment. I think it's just, I've never been in that much pain and felt powerless to the pain before, and I honestly plan to do a little bit of like counseling, a little bit of EMDR, which if you don't know what that is, it's like a type of counseling just like so you can heal from an experience. But I think I posted a little bit on my story that I had a really hard delivery and birth experience, and I posted on a women's Facebook group, an all natural women's Facebook group that I'm in. And you guys, so many women have such traumatic labors and deliveries and hard stories, and they just don't talk about them because we just don't, and we don't talk about how hard labor and delivery is, and women don't know until they go through it. But the funny thing to me, like the most interesting thing, is that even though it's so hard, everybody has kids again. People keep having kids. Why? Because this little bundle of joy, this little nugget, is worth everything that I went through. And next time is not going to be as hard for me. Your second, usually labor is a lot shorter, delivery is a lot shorter. I want to do a water birth next time. And yeah, it's just, we live and we learn. And do research. If you're gonna have a baby soon or you haven't had kids yet, you can make it so that you experience fetal rejection reflex and you don't have to push for 2.5 hours. There's so many things that you can do differently than I did to avoid my experience, and it was very, very hard. I don't want to sugarcoat it, and I don't want to pretend like I had an easy experience. At the end of labor, at the end of delivery, I looked at my mom and I just said, I can't do this. And shortly after, she came out. And you guys, the last time I pushed was 4 huge pushes, and it was, I want to cover that. I did 4 huge pushes. And once her head was out, the body usually comes out really easily. After the head was out, you guys, her body shot out of me. My husband and the doctor were at by the baby when she came out, and my husband was gonna catch her, and they both had to catch her. She shot out so fast, and it felt like a huge rubbery, like baby, like a huge rubbery thing just like shot out of me. It was the weirdest feeling of my life. I can't even explain it. But this is just to say that finally when she was out, I could not believe it. It was like a dream. And so they later they held her up, but I had an oxygen mask on and I was almost passed out. And one thing I want to say is if you're going to do an epidural free birth, you guys, it's not the same thing that you see when you're watching somebody on YouTube give birth with an epidural. Like, I thought like I would look somewhat like myself after birth. I have never been more drenched in sweat in my life, you guys. I did not look cute, but it was worth it because I didn't get an epidural. And if you want to get an epidural, that's awesome. I just didn't want one for a lot of reasons that I had researched. But I did it, you guys, even though it was so hard and it was so painful. I did it, and I'm so proud of myself. And next time I still want to do a natural labor and delivery. So they hold Zara up. Yeah, by the way, her name's Zara Epidural. I should have said her name. I thought that my mom brain would get better. I thought that my brain would get better after pregnancy, but now I just have mom brain. So, yeah, so they held Zara up, and I couldn't really see her because my eyes were so swollen, and I was shaking just because your body's in shock a little bit after you give birth. That's normal. So they laid her on me, and after maybe a couple minutes, it finally kicked in that she was there, and I teared up and I cried a little bit, and I was just so happy that she was there, and I just couldn't believe it. But it wasn't as beautiful in the moment when they laid her on me as I thought I would, you guys, just because I was like shaking and I was just in shock at what was happening. I was just in shock. My body was in shock, and I was so exhausted. Total, I was in labor for 24 hours. And I don't know if I said this, you guys, but I went from a 7 to a 10 in 20 minutes. So when I got on the all fours, I progressed in 20 minutes. I just wanted to add that. I don't think I said that. So yeah, they laid her on me. The doctor stitched me up. Apparently they offered for me to see the placenta, but I don't remember. I guess I said no, I don't care. But then later I was sad that I didn't look at it, but I have seen a placenta before a few times in real life, so I'm sure it looked the same. After she was out, I was just so happy. The doctor stitched me up. They did give me Pitocin, which I didn't want, but I think that they probably gave it to me. I'm pretty sure I was bleeding out a lot, and because I was bleeding, I think, pretty bad. They had to put it in my leg though, because I completely ripped out my IV during delivery and nobody even noticed. So yeah, then they laid her on me for an hour, and I had them make sure that they didn't wipe her vernix off, but instead rub it into her skin, and we didn't bathe her until we got home. I don't think I gave her a bath the first week because babies don't need baths. Oh, I gave birth to her, by the way, at 11 p.m. and she was 7 pounds 6 ounces, 19 inches, and everybody's like, that's so little, and I'm like, yeah, she still wouldn't come out though. So later on that night, I eventually ended up getting out of bed. So brutal. They changed my bed linens. I didn't shower off until the next morning, which I still didn't even really want to, but I felt I was very, very gross, and I smelled so bad. At the end of the day, my delivery was worth it. I love this little girl so much. She means the world to me. And yeah, I just think that it is really important to hear the good birth stories and the tough ones. You have no idea what your experience is going to be, and I will say posting in the natural Facebook group that I'm in was so healing, just to hear so many other mamas say that they had a hard birth experience too, and that doesn't mean that I didn't prepare enough or that I didn't do a good job. Yeah, it was really, really hard, but I have already learned so much of things that I would do different next time. And either way, don't let my birth story scare you. I heard some pretty gruesome stories before I gave birth, and it never scared me, because you just don't know what you're going to get into until you're in the situation, and it depends if you're induced, if they break your water. There's so many different things to take into consideration. But I want to do a postpartum video for you guys. I also want to do what it was like my last couple weeks being pregnant. it was extremely difficult, more difficult than I thought it would be. But anyways, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, hit the like button, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.